I welcome you in this beautiful natural building construction site. Walls full of straw bales, just smells amazing here. And today I want to talk with you about a very special path of learning. For the last 2 years I have been doing a free learning apprenticeship in natural building, completely self-organized, following my interests, following my passions and learning with my own will to learn. So how this journey went for me and how I ended up here in the straw bale house and all the story on how it started, I would like to tell you today. So it all started with me converting a van to live in full time. And while converting that, playing around, being creative, working with a lot of wood and trying to make the build as natural as possible, I really fell in love with crafting, with working with wood and natural materials. But then when it came to insulating the van, and I learned about building physics and natural materials inside of a metal cage, condensation, mold, I really wanted to use natural insulation material because I really love natural materials. But then the more I learned, the more I realized there are limitations. And in the end, I ended up using not a natural insulation material in my van. But then looking back on that, it made me so disappointed. It made me so not satisfied. It made me a little bit angry that I couldn't use natural materials in a safe way in a vehicle. So this made me really think. And in that time, I was really considering building vans for a living or something like that. But then I realized, no, my foundation, the whole van, the vehicle, is not really ecological, natural foundation. You know, it's oily, rusty, it takes diesel. We all know what the vehicles do. And then you have this limitation of building physics in the van, and you will never be able to build it as well in terms of having a good living space like a natural house, like a straw bale house. You will never get that in a vehicle, never, ever. So I was really thinking further, and I really got into tiny houses. And I was really amazed what you can do there, and that you can have diffusion open walls, that you can have a very much more healthy living climate. But then soon all the restrictions of the shapes when you build a tiny house on a trailer kind of disappointed me a little bit, because I wanted to be more creative. I wanted to build round things if possible. So then I really started thinking, what kind of education can I have in order to learn about building natural houses? And the first thing that came to my mind was becoming a carpenter. So I went to the two most ecological carpentries in my region, and both of them were advertising to be super green, super natural builders and stuff like that. So I went to them and did internships. And in both carpentries, I was really disappointed. The people there mostly were not really interested in natural building. They were just interested in making money. And also the more I experienced how they were treating each other on the construction site, a really rough way, rough words, not a very nice atmosphere to deal with each other on a human level, you know. So I felt in my heart that this is not the right place for me right now. And most important of all, if these people are not interested in what I'm interested in, then I cannot really see them as teachers. So I was really disappointed for a while, and I didn't know where to go. And then luckily in this time I discovered a great book. It's a German book about a German guy who built an 18 square meter tiny house, but not on wheels. He built it on a real foundation with thick walls. And the craziest thing about this house is it doesn't have electricity connection, it doesn't have a water connection, it doesn't have a wastewater connection. No pipes, no lines going to that house. It's completely off-grid. It's using solar panels and a battery to have enough electricity, even in the winter time. And the craziest thing is, he's collecting rainwater in a tank and then using that rainwater, filtering it until drinking water. And because he has a dry composting toilet, he's not producing any wastewater that contains some digested food or urine. And so all the water he's producing as wastewater is only grey water from showering and from washing dishes and stuff like that. This grey water is collected again in a tank next to the house, and then it's pumped up in a plant cleaning station. This is like a thing like 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters, and there the water goes through. There's some swamp plants on the top, and there's a special substrate that filters the water. And like that the water goes through, and after that it's already drinking water again and gets collected in the freshwater tank. And like that, he's not using any water, he's just using the water in a cycle, an endless cycle basically. And the little water that gets evaporated or he's using for cooking or drinking, it gets easily refilled by the rainwater. So this approach of really combining natural building with off-grid living and looking at the big picture of the cycles of nature at the same time, this really fascinated me so much. And I wrote his book about this house within 2 days. And then I realized, hey, this guy is not living far away from me. And then I visited him on a Sunday on a seminar about his whole house. And I was so fascinated that I told this guy, hey, here's my phone number. I would like to, learn from you and join projects. If you have some projects, just call me. And then 2 days later he called me, and we just went to a house to install solar panels on to make this house off-grid. Then 2 days later we had another construction site where there was a newly built tiny house with an angled roof, like a very nice looking roof. And that roof we tiled with some recycled old tiles that they took from another house, which looked super nice. And it was so much fun to work there with amazing people. And on these construction sites, there was always an aspect of community, of eating together, of being together, interested in each other and talking to each other, singing together. Yeah, and then I felt like, yeah, this is where my heart says yes. And I also told him about my experiences in the carpentry. Then suddenly this guy who wrote the book, he came to me and said, hey Jojo, I think you don't really fit into that system of learning. Why don't you make a free learning apprenticeship here with us, and you just go on all the construction sites that are available, and you just come along and you learn and you work, and I see how interested you are. Just come along and your interest will give you all the knowledge you need. And I was like, yes, this is it. Thank you. I would like to do that. So I was basically the first person that we tried this experimental free learning method with. And it's still in the process, but I already made a lot of good experiences now in 2 years. And I'm sharing this with you now because this is not just for me. This could also be a path for many other people who don't fit in the normal education system that is there right now in most countries. Because the normal education system is a pretty fixed one, that you have to learn this now and you have to do this test now about this. And you cannot really focus on what's really interesting to you right now. Rather, you're forced to learn this now and you have to know this now. But we all know that when something is super interesting for us, it's mostly very easy to learn it. And if something is not really interesting to us, we have a super hard time to get that into our brain and to remember it. So suddenly now there was a group of people involved in these kind of natural building projects, and they were all happy to help me to develop this idea of a free learning handicraft natural building apprenticeship. So they helped me to solve the legal issues of it all. They helped me to make sure that I'm insured while I'm working, made sure that I have a mentor that I can always, talk to if I need some help or something. But the general idea is that there's nobody there arranging my construction sites, my work. I have to look for my work myself. And I'm completely self-responsible in that. Doing my own taxes, doing my own bookkeeping and such things that also are part of it. So I felt very welcomed and very safe in this group of people, even though I was completely free and they didn't have any obligation to do anything for me. It was just a free human relation of giving and taking. Yeah, it felt so right. And as I was starting to work in this community of people, I got so many amazing projects that I could work on. For example, I was in a big hempcrete construction site where I learned all about building with hempcrete. Then I had an amazing master carpenter that I worked a lot of woodworking projects with. And I learned a lot about carpentry, about, tiling roofs and building all kinds of stuff out of wood in a very, very, very good way, in a high quality. And also finally, the people that I was working with there, they were actually interested in natural building with mostly natural materials as much as possible. And I met some clay plasterers that taught me how to clay plaster. I could also make some experiences with lime plastering. I could make experiences with a little bit of plumbing and with putting wastewater pipes into the ground. And then I was so interested in this off-grid water system that works in one cycle. Even though it's not that complicated, I didn't have an idea how to build it. But I wanted to understand how to build it so I would be able to build this on my own. My approach then was, now I will build a manual on how to build this water system. So I just started to write, and I just wrote everything how I thought it would be. And then I had one of these mentors that I have in this group of people who knows how to build such a system, correcting everything that was not right there. And that's how I learned how to build it. And he also, taught me many things, how he built it and what experiences he made. So then after some time, I built my first off-grid water system, and it works. And also we made sure that this manual is open source. It's for free, everybody can access it. For now, it's just in German, but maybe one day I will write an English version as well. And then I met an amazing person that is cutting moon wood, the traditional way of cutting wood with the moon, giving you a very, very, very special kind of wood that has a lot of benefits. And then we had the opportunity to build a little hut, a little very artistic looking, super nice hut for a dry composting toilet, for a place where you can have holidays. Such a fun project to do. And in this great experience and this self-study, I learned so much about building materials, building physics, truly building with natural materials and really looking deep into some materials that are not really natural but sold as natural and being critical about that. And also, about building with local materials. The more and more I realized it's not only about building with natural materials, houses. For me, it's actually about feeling a connection again, feeling a connection in this process. I could find, befriending myself with my clients, with the people I was building for, having a community with all my fellow co-workers and builders while we were building a house. Sitting on a bonfire afterwards and singing with the guitar, stuff like that normally on a construction site you wouldn't see. And also once I could experience making our own clay plaster from the soil directly on the building site and using that. And this was such a connection that I felt, it was just beautiful, I can hardly describe it. But I felt so connected to the earth, so connected to this thing that I was doing there. And it felt just so right. And in the end, I discovered straw bales, and I even became a straw bale builder now. But how that happened is a story for next time. I can just tell you, if you feel what I feel, if in your heart it feels like you would also like to go a path of free learning, just following your intuition, following your interests, it's maybe a scary part to start off walking this path. But trust me, if you listen to your heart and if this feels right, also this might be a path for you. And I only made very valuable experiences. Also, there will be some up and downs, there will be some hurtful times, probably also some tough times, some very good times. But I can really encourage you to also think about this option, that there's another path that is free learning. And this is not only natural building, this can be anything in life. We don't have to go to university, we don't have to go do this apprenticeship, do that, go to school there. There are many ways of just learning with interest. I'm really, really grateful that I went on this path, and I really want to say thank you to all the people that were my company on this path. And without other people, I would have never even gone on this path, and I wouldn't have came to where I am now. So